Assalamualaikum everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Geek Dhaba. And today we're going to talk about How I Met Your Father. Now, before we get into this review, I think it's time that we open the Dhaba. How I Met Your Father is meant to be a spin-off of the very popular show from 2005 up until 2013 called How I Met Your Mother. Now, that show was great. It had a great blend of comedy, some slapstick humor, some running jokes that ran through the series, and an air of mystery in it. It was fantastically presented, last season aside. So obviously the last season wasn't any good, and the the original show was fantastic. It did great. I mean, I've seen this show so much that I have memorized it for the most part. There were great, memorable characters. There was always an air of mystery. You never knew what you were going to get, and you never knew when the finale was ever going to come around until they finally told us the finale was around. It always left you guessing and wanting more. How I Met Your Father, however, is different. Now, How I Met Your Mother had to limit its jokes to a great extent because it did come out on a studio network and it had rules on how it would proceed. However, since streaming services are the new norm these days, How I Met Your Father had no limitations. So, with dialogue, swearing, etc., what they could talk about, it's totally fine. Obviously, they did still keep it to a PG-13 rating, but still, it didn't deal with the limitations that How I Met Your Mother might have dealt with, being a network show. That, with that in mind, the show is only one season long and 13 episodes, and still in its infancy. It's hard to say exactly what will come about it because even season one of How I Met Your Mother wasn't the best season of How I Met Your Mother. But despite that, let's talk about the show. Hilary Duff makes an excellent performance as the main lead. The cast and crew around her are very colorful, very diverse. What you'd expect from 2020s TV shows. And there's a difference here compared to what How I Met Your Mother was. Now, with How I Met Your Mother, you always knew that Robin wasn't the mother, but someone else was, and we were leading up to that. Over here, the case is different. Over here, they introduced 5 people in the first episode, and it's cut and dry that one of these 5 people is the father. Now, this approach I kind of like, but it leads to another problem in the series, which I will discuss in a sec. So, with this being different, and obviously it being from a female perspective and not having to date with the traditional, go to a bar, pick up women kind of situation, it's more of a woman dating. What is she going through when she has to look for dates? And now there's digital dating, there's Tinder, there's Bumble, there's all these other places. So it's basically an exploration of dating in the modern world in How I Met Your Father. It's done well. It's done really well. There's some jokes that you get. It's more akin to How I Met Your Mother. There are a lot of jokes and a lot of references that you get because you grew up in that time, and because we're still in this time, there are a lot of jokes and references that are made in this show that you still get. The characters are great. They all have a meaningful amount of depth to them. There are some that seem one-dimensional at first, but over the course of the series, they tend to develop into more, complex characters, which is nice. I was more worried that we'd have the one-dimensional character trope running throughout the entire series, which tends to kill a lot of sitcoms. but I'm glad that the characters were slightly bit more complex by the end of the series. They're not just cookie cutters that oh, this guy's a rich dude and he's going to act like a rich pompous dude. No, he has depth, he has some feelings and thoughts on things, and he expresses them. This one dude, he's just a guy, a hopeless romantic, but no, he has his reasons for doing things and he discusses them. This woman, the main lead, is just a romantic looking for love. No, but her past is a very big indicator of why. And it's a lot of these different things that come together and make all the characters really well. However, at this time, I can't remember any of their names because I've only watched the show once. But despite that, I believe that there are a lot of really good hints thrown around of who my father might be, but there's nothing concrete. And one of the things about this show that kind of I just mentioned earlier that it annoyed me was the fact that we know who the father could potentially be. And in the last episode, they just kind of threw out a random array of things to make it look like one of them could be the father, but there was nothing concrete. Like, just going into spoilers here, one of the fathers essentially is already engaged, and throughout the entire series, it seems like his engagement is going to fail. But then at the end, he gets married. There's another one, the hopeless romantic I mentioned earlier. He is geared up to be the prime love interest, and all of a sudden he just decides he's going to up and go back to his ex towards the end, slowly eliminating all potential. Now, this isn't bad, it's just kind of tugging, like annoying in the sense as well. Okay, we know that this guy is going to be the father. One of them is going to be the father. Which one and why? And throwing like all these curveballs at us kind of ruins the flow for us. It would have been better to have not known exactly that one of them was going to be the father, in my opinion. It also ruins this other aspect of the show. The show, specifically the part where she dates this guy who isn't meant to be one of the fathers. Now, we already knew as a result of this that this relationship is doomed to fail. It's not like Ted going out with a random girl in the series, like Zoe, for example, where he is just, we're convinced that this might work out, this might be the case, and he might reveal that she might be the mother. But no, that didn't happen. And that relationship didn't exactly add anything to her character in the show, whereas Zoe's relationship added a lot to Ted's character. The show is still a fun watch. There's a nice little cameo in there for those of you who are still who haven't seen yet and don't care about spoilers. Robin Scherbatsky makes an appearance in the show for one episode, and it's before it's hard to tell where exactly. It's right after Ted gets married to his wife in the timeline of How I Met Your Mother. And McLaren's is a bar in this as well. They go to McLaren's pub, the original one from the show. Uh, and I honestly wish the entire show was still set in that bar, if I'm being honest. But what can you do? I'm pretty sure there's a second season that is coming out. It is slated for a second season. And I'm looking forward to it. And I think I might enjoy it a lot. There's appearances by the captain as well, and boats. But yeah, it's hard to give like a definitive opinion on a show like this when you know that the entire premise is to build upon the show as it goes on. It's still a good watch. I recommend it if you are a fan of How I Met Your Mother. If you're not, I recommend you just skip it entirely. With that said, I guess my score for the show will have to be a 7.5 out of 10. Its characters are developing nicely. It has a decent structure to it. It's just not the same appeal as the original. And it made some changes to the original's formula that seem kind of grinding. So with that said, do you guys agree with my opinion? Do you guys have something else to say? Do you have anything to add? Let me know in the comment section below. And be sure to like, share, subscribe, everything. so that we give more of our opinions moving forward. Until next time, see you all later.